Selamat datang di WrestleSlam Interview. Nama saya adalah Val, sebagai salah satu admin dari WrestleSlam. Dan hari ini kita memiliki kesempatan luar biasa untuk menjelajahi dunia gulat profesional. Dan tamu pertama kita di episode pertama, tidak lain tidak bukan, adalah ada dari Cornelius Low dari Malaysian Pro Wrestling.
Oke, selamat malam dan.
Oke, selamat malam. Eh, dan mungkin kita langsung saja mulai. Cornelius Low sendiri, can you introduce yourself to our Indonesian followers and audience? And what do you do right now? And as a pro wrestler and other else. You can start now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cornelius Low, a professional wrestler from Malaysia. So yes, folks, I am an actual professional wrestler. I mainly wrestle out of Malaysia Pro Wrestling, aka MYPW. I've been wrestling professionally for give or take 5 to 7 years, if you want to include the pandemic era. Besides wrestling in Malaysia, I've also wrestled quite a number of times in Singapore. I've wrestled once in the Philippines. I've wrestled recently in actually Thailand, and I've wrestled actually once in Perth as well. So I've got a good bit of international experience. I suppose you wish for me to describe what sort of wrestler I am. Is that true? Is that the case?
Yeah. You can describe what kind of wrestler you are. Like maybe you're a high flyer, or maybe you're like in Japan. There's something called King's Road or something else. You can
I'm a
explain.
wrestler that wants to win. That's the most important
Okay.
thing. I suppose you can describe what I do as a little bit more on the technical side. I like to think that I'm more competent with the technical wrestling. I suppose that's my speciality. And don't get me wrong, I do enjoy a good collision from time to time. I am very much of the
nice.
technical wrestling style. But also, arguably more importantly than my wrestling style is also what sort of wrestler I am. What kind of what sort of character am I? The moniker that I've given myself from actually the very beginning of my career is the uptown low life. So it's basically how do I, if I were to translate this very roughly into bahasa, it's like kayak orang atas yang fikir diri sebagai orang yang gak atas, yang orang yang tiada self-esteem, thinks lowly of himself. So I love to play around with that sort of paradox, with that sort of almost that sort of hypocrisy, I suppose.
You can tell us about more about your gimmick, or maybe some of your life, maybe as a butler, and what the difference between the YouTube and the lifestyle
Okay.
of pro wrestling. Yeah.
All right. Well, for that, I suppose I can show a little bit of what he. Well, so you mentioned butler, which is a very interesting thing actually, because that is almost like borderline a different character than what I do IRL in the ring, but it is still considered the same person. Just I'm adapting to different mediums. So on my YouTube channel, yes, I run my own YouTube channel. I am actually a VTuber. So on that channel, I will actually announce myself as the pro wrestler turned butler VTuber Cornelius Low. So in that channel, I am a butler VTuber because I thought to myself, okay, if I want to be a VTuber, I mean, yes, it'd be fun if I was also a pro wrestler VTuber. That's good, well and good. I never like to make things simple for myself. And I mean, look at me. I already look like a butler. Might as well be a butler and serve the audience, serve my fellow VTubers, all that good stuff. So I am much nicer on my VTuber channel. I'm much more welcoming. I actually behave more butlery, I suppose. So I will be very bersopan santun. Dalam IRL, however, aku ada reputasi nggak hormat my opponents. Aku ada reputasi do whatever it takes to win if I have to. I wrestle technically, but I don't wrestle in a nice technical way. Let's put it that way. So if there's a chance for me to bend your limbs, I will bend your limbs. A chance for me to shove my elbow right into your face multiple times in a row, I will absolutely do so.
Why you choose wrestling to your career? Like why wrestling in the first place? And as I know, like maybe in Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, wrestling is not as big in America or maybe Canada or UK. So why you choose wrestling?
It's a very good question indeed. When I started off pro wrestling, it was still in its very very early stages. Indeed, when I started, 7 years ago, 2000, was it 2016 or 2017? Something really when I literally first started enjoying pro wrestling. So obviously, I was a fan of pro wrestling. Indeed, all those years ago, I grew up watching the WWE. So how I came about pro wrestling is actually a funny story. I was looking through the newspapers and I saw an article talking about Singapore pro wrestling, not Malaysia pro wrestling, Singapore pro wrestling first. I was like, eh? Ada gulat di Singapore? What? So I was like, if kalau Singapore ada kemungkinannya Malaysia ada ke? So I researched a little bit more, and turns out yes, there was. And here is here is where it feels like it's takdir, like it's fate. It's the training center was actually 5 minutes from my home at the time. So our training center has changed here and there since then, but at the time it was legitimately extremely close to my home. And that's all I'm going to say about my private life. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm still fairly healthy. I've got some martial arts training background, and I love pro wrestling. I want to at least try, see if I'm able to understand this craft better. Let's try out just a little bit. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and it's fine. I just want to enjoy the training and understand this world, because at the time when I started off, I didn't know. The more behind the scenes stuff about wrestling. And when I actually got into wrestling, oh my goodness, the depth, the absolute depth and the complexity were astounded me. And I think all that depth and complexity is what kept me going. To put in perspective, wrestling in the bigger countries like Mexico, US, UK, Japan has existed at this point almost more than a century already. At the time, MYPW was only like what, 2 years old, 3 years old at the time. Still extremely, they were all still learning and understanding how to go about the business better. And so here we are. And right now, so MYPW is celebrating its 10th year anniversary. So this is our 10th year of existence, and I'm pretty excited to be a part of it. The show is coming up on March 2nd in Quash Theatre, TTTI in Kuala Lumpur. I do not know if there's anyone if there's like any like Indonesians living in Kuala Lumpur right now who's interested. If you are, tickets are still available. It's a beautiful theater. We've got some amazing matches. I'm going to be there, so you get to see me there.
Okay. So, you were talking about TNA and WWE, and you're looking at pro wrestling back then. And were there any wrestlers or individuals who serve as an inspirations for your wrestling and your career?
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. Okay, so if you talk about my wrestling guys, so I don't have one favorite wrestler. So I've got like a few. I call them my guys. If you're talking about guys that have inspired me as to become a wrestler, one guy stands above. Actually, no, two stands above all. And that is Samoa Joe and Daniel Bryan.
Uh,
So yes, I watched Samoa Joe back in the TNAs. I thought to myself, this man is a monster. He might be rude and disrespectful, but man puts in the work, and I've always respected. I love how intense he was, and to see him being able to go all the way to become AEW World Champion, I have thought to myself, can he ever reach World Championship status? And I thought he was so close to getting it in WWE, but alas, but in AEW, he's finally done it, and everyone is like, yes, thank you, Samoa Joe, for finally pushing through and getting yourself your, I guess the big one, indeed. So, and then Daniel Bryan, someone that was a bit of quite inspiration for me, because he is seen as a smaller lad back then. He also came from the indies as well, so he was seen as an outsider. And to see how he grew as a wrestler, he was already seen as technical wise one of the best in the world. But when it comes to get engaging the audience, making them care for him, putting on these amazing promos. At one point, he was on top of the world. He was doing some incredible work in WWE, and that's why it was really fascinating to see all that.
Let's move on to the next question. Okay, and looking back at your career, what will you consider to be your proudest achievement or most memorable moment?
This is actually an interesting one. One of the matches that I've been very proud to be a part of. This is a bit of a strange one because yes, I lost in that match, but just the impact from that match absolutely changed a lot of us. Changed MyPW's trajectory forever. Actually, I was in a match called we call it a Pentagon Pandemonium match. It's basically like a fatal five-way match. So there's 5 people in that match. One of them obviously was me, but there was someone else. Her name is Nor Phoenix Diana. I don't know if you've heard of the name before. Have you heard of Nor Phoenix Diana?
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's the world's first hijabi wrestler, essentially.
first figure
Uh,
Russell. Yeah, right.
yes, yes,
I know her. I know
yeah.
her.
So I was in a match with her, and that match, when she won that match, the crowd. If you see the video, there's a video of it on my Instagram channel where you can see exactly what happened in the end of the match and how I reacted to it. I was gobsmacked at just how loud the crowd was and how they just kept cheering. It felt like she kept going and going and going and going and going because they could not believe their eyes that a female wrestler, a female hijabi wrestler won at the time one of the titles in MyPW, the MyPW WrestleCon Championship. So yes, I was. So after she won in that match, in the Fatal 5-Way match, I challenged her in another event, where I went 1v1 with her, and we went ham against each other. We went absolutely ham against each other. I legitimately knocked her out because I kicked her in the head. She kicked out, and she then defeated me. So that's an unfortunate thing. So it is kind of sad that I'm mentioning losses right now, so I'm going to try to mention a favorite moment of mine that involved me actually winning. Actually, no. You know what? A recent one, actually, is in Max Causeway Jam. This is a very unique event where it is basically, technically, it's supposed to be every match being Malaysia versus Singapore. So the Malaysian contingent, we traveled to Singapore to wrestle in a wrestling promotion in Singapore called Max. So recently, I was involved in a crazy match where it was a 3v3. So 3 Malaysians versus 3 Singaporeans. Lo and behold, I actually got the win. I actually got us the win. I managed to get a sneaky pin victory. No one expected, and I got us the win. So I did something good for Malaysia. So I might not look it, but I am a little bit of a patriot, actually, believe it or not. I'm really proud of that.
Okay, thank you. In 4 days, your the MYPW Pavilion you agreed to, and you're going to have a tag team match with Daniel Coxworth and Rory Holmes, and teaming with Blazing Rush. And
yes,
how do you prepare for it?
Well, for one, I had to find a tag team partner. That's for one, because Blazing Large and I. Okay, for some context, I recently decided to actually become a not just a wrestler but also a wrestling manager as well. So I decided. So my first client was Blazing Raj, because I slowly realized that hey, I've got all this experience with me. I'm one of those bigger picture guys in the Southeast Asian wrestling scene. So I understood the importance of mentoring and nurturing a new generation of wrestlers. Things were going well initially, but yeah, maybe my arrogance, maybe how hard I was on him was a little bit too much for him, and he left me for quite a while. But when I found out that I was being booked in a tag match, I realized, oh, okay, it makes sense for me to search for Raj, maybe to see if we can work something out. And turns out we go back together, and we're going to face up against 2 Australians. And in fact, I know Coxworth seems to come off that he's just arrogant. Rory Holmes, however, is a veteran pro wrestler. In fact, he was very, very good. I will not underestimate Holmes in particular. So this is a potentially dangerous team that we're facing up against. So Raj and I, we've actually prepared a little bit You know, we workshop some strategies. We've come up with some tag combos, so you can see some good old tag team action coming Saturday in MYPW Newbury too.
So, talking about preparing, you talk about doing some tag moves and other else. I mean, can you shed some light on how you mentally and physically gear up for the ring? And do you have any pre-match rituals or like rituals, maybe doing some YouTube video before the match, or do you have something?
For me in particular, nothing too crazy. I guess I do enjoy a little bit of something. I'm not gonna say what it is, but I do drink a little bit of something a little extra spicy to get it going. Not too much, just a little bit to warm up the body and stuff. And then I do actually do like actual stretches and actual stretches and make sure that my body is properly warmed up as well. I do like to revise with my tag partners, make sure that we're going into this with a plan. You know, any professional fighter will tell you that if you don't go in a match with a plan, you're not fighting at all. You know, I've seen some folks, they will do all sorts of things. I've seen folks do prayers. I've seen folks maybe message the family, because I want to make it very clear here. What we do is extremely dangerous, like a life or death situation. Like the worst case scenario in pro wrestling is death. There's no question about it. No matter what level, what we do is considered very, very risky. We try our best to mitigate the risk. You know, even if we're hurt, we can still walk on our own 2 feet.
Yeah, like I mean, WWE always say don't try this at home. And talking about risks and injuries, do you ever have injuries in your
Oh,
wrestling?
no, I've got a pretty bad injury. One that a lot of people have asked me when I tell them this, why the hell do you still wrestle? Because very early on in my, not even career, training, like barely a year into my training, I suffered a very severe injury. I tried to carry someone that I should not have. Okay, I'm not a large person, but I was feeling very cocky, very arrogant. So I thought, I'll just try to carry this up like a. This was actually in tryouts as well, to just demonstrate something. But the moment I carried him, there was something wrong with both our techniques at the time. I heard this horrible crack on my hips, and I dropped him and had to be hospitalized. So, like, I literally couldn't even sit up. Like, you know, like I literally couldn't even like eh, sit up at all. It was that bad. I thought it was like something to do with my hips, actually, like a nerve pain on my hips. And I'm finally able to go to the hospital properly, where it's a bit, I guess the situation is a bit more safe for me to go to the hospital. I got an MRI, and what I found out was that what I have is called a degenerative disc on my lower back. So what that basically means is that there's some things I literally physically cannot do, uh, but I can still wrestle. I just have to be very, very smart about this. I'm okay with sharing it because I do want to emphasize to people what I do is extremely dangerous. Okay, what this thing that happened to me? Yes, it was a freak accident. This is not a common thing that happens to actually a lot of wrestlers. So it unfortunately was a bit of a freak accident. So I'm sharing this partly because to just educate people that what we do is dangerous. But in spite of that, and it is also because I am very, very stubborn.
Okay, interesting. So talking about risky, dangerous, and some wrestlers, there's some terms about chemistry. So yeah, I don't know if you can answer it or not, but if you wrestle someone or maybe in a tag team match or singles match, did you guys already do the like the spot and things, or did you guys just do it spontaneously?
I mean, when you say chemistry between my tag partners and yeah, I mean, even with someone, I've tagged a couple times in my career, and yes, like I said, we do definitely prepare a little bit. So yes, we do go into the ring and we do test out stuff. There's been some moves that I thought I could do, I can't do. There's been moves that turns out I can do, and so we do it. And we do experiment. Once you get your fundamentals down, there's a creative side of pro wrestling, like, oh, we can do this move this way. Oh, we can do this move that way. In order for maximum damage. So Oh yes, yes. Chemistry is not just something that's born or comes naturally. It has to be developed. We workshop this all the time. It's just like any other martial arts. You got to it's just like any other martial art or combat sports. You've got to experiment to see what you're capable of doing, and then just keep on practicing and practicing and practicing. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Pro wrestling, to some extent, is a martial art. Okay, so we have
Yeah.
to be very disciplined. We have to keep training, and we have to keep our senses sharp. So yes, it is much more like a martial art than people realize.
And for the next, maybe ask about, did you, like you talk about Perth, did you watch Elimination Chamber?
Unfortunately, I mean, I did saw
Yeah.
some clips here and there, but no, I haven't gone to it yet because I'm preparing for my own show.
Yeah, that's a good one as well. I mean, yeah, did wrestlers always check some shows or I mean,
Uh,
did wrestlers always check like
oh
shows
yes.
like AEW,
Oh, of
WWE?
course, all the time, all the time. That's how
Okay.
we have to keep ourselves updated. I refuse to be one of those wrestlers that only thinks about what happened in the 90s, in the 80s, because I live in the now, So I deliberately make sure I at least at least somewhat keep up to date with what is going on right now, like who's the champion, what are the audience expectations, and that sort of a thing. And that's partly what like we have to in a way is almost to survive as indie wrestlers. For example, when the Elimination Chamber event was announced in Perth, Australia, what did the wrestlers in what did the independent pro wrestlers in Australia do? They made events the day before Elimination Chamber. So there were a lot of events happening the day before Elimination Chamber itself. So a lot of independent wrestlers. WWE has sent scouts to Southeast Asia before, including Malaysia. So you best believe that we prepared extra hard for that particular night, and we tried our best to impress the scouts in particular. And so maybe who knows? Maybe next few years, these scouts. I'm not saying just WWE, but maybe even AEW. They might come by to Asian Tenggara once
Yeah,
again.
I hope. Yeah, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, the last time a major promotion like WWE making a show, it's like a couple years ago in Singapore, right?
I believe so. I
Yeah.
believe so. I know that the WWE has also came to Malaysia quite a long time ago, more than a decade at this rate. We're talking about some big companies coming by in Southeast Asia. The most recent thing I can think of actually is Stardom. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
Stardom
Stardom.
is. Yes, if
I
you
know,
know
I
what
know.
you know what Bushiroad is.
Yeah, we sure it's like the big companies making the New Japan and Stardom, right?
Yes,
This
they
Bushiroad,
Bushi
yeah.
Road owns
Yeah.
New Japan and
Owns,
Stardom.
yeah.
They Bushi Road in I think it was it AFA? I think it was AFA last year. They did a show there. They did a show in AFA, and they actually used the Grapple Max ring. So Stardom wrestlers used a Singaporean a ring, and the Singaporeans also did a show with them as well. So they, these all these big companies, they are starting to see the value in Southeast Asia. They see there's a new avenue, a new audience perhaps, and us as independent wrestlers in Southeast Asia. You notice that I'm using the word Southeast Asia a lot as opposed to just Malaysia. Like I said, I'm a bigger picture guy. I can't. I From very early on, I realized that I cannot afford to just stay in Malaysia alone, because although yes, I can develop myself and stuff here. Yes, I can cater to the homegrown market. There's only so much you can do here. But why not I learn from the other countries? Why not I learn from the other experienced guys from other nations and put myself in an uncomfortable situation and wrestle against Singaporeans, Filipinos, Thais. It was very interesting to wrestle in a Thai audience, for instance. I learned a lot in that match. It's actually a really great time to be a pro wrestling fan.
I think Stardom will came for to Southeast Asia, and we actually reported and I said Indonesia will be one of it. I don't know if they actually came to Indonesia or not, but the Singapore, I know they made a video about it, and yeah, talking about Indonesia, it's not a really big one for wrestling, but
Yet.
recently there's a new company called Kebanting, and what are your thoughts about it? Do you want to wrestle there?
Ah, I thought to myself, finally, Indonesia has pro wrestling. Because I've always thought to myself, me and the other lads that are more business minded, we always thought to ourselves, oh, oh, wouldn't it be nice to, as Malaysians, to wrestle in Jakarta one day? Because I know the rivalry between Malaysia and Indonesia. I know that if I were to go there, oh, it would be not. It'll be one of the most insane nights ever. And I am very aware on the robustness, the size of the internet of the Indonesian entertainment industry. Indeed. And so when I found out about Kabante, what is it? The final forbidden door has been opened. The final frontier has been opened. This is the final, because Indonesia is, yes, I think is the last big Southeast Asian country to not have pro wrestling yet. And then came Kabanting, and I thought to myself, oh, good time to open up. And they opened up big indeed, isn't it? The first episode is like more than 400K views, which is almost unheard of in Southeast Asian wrestling. For their first episode to have that many is a great start. So I cannot wait to see what they do. And yes, of course, I'm interested in wrestling in Kebanting. So if nothing else, for the novelty of doing a Malaysia versus Indonesian match, that would be awesome. It will also be good to spread the good word of pro wrestling to a new audience as well, especially because I think I'm one of those guys. I think I'm one of those guys that is quite good when it comes to leaving a good first impression. There are some wrestlers where maybe it takes a while for audiences to understand. For me, the moment you look at me, you already have an impression about me already, and that's good for audience that's very new to pro wrestling.
Yeah, and Indonesia. I'm looking at the 400K views. It's insane numbers, and I interpret that Indonesia has a lot of silent majority pro wrestling fans, and
Mm,
I talked to myself, and while making this account, WrestleSlam, there's actually so many Indonesians that really didn't talk about wrestling a lot,
mm,
but they actually like wrestling. They
mm,
they always shy about wrestling is fake or wrestling is scripted. They always shy about that.
mm.
I mean, my teacher talked about that as well, and my teacher said, "Oh, the wrestling is fake. Wrestling is fake," and
That's like saying
that's
movies are
why.
fake. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I actually understand where this sentiment came from, because back then, wrestling was much more secretive than it is now. It is shocking how open wrestling is now. Don't get me wrong. So in the past, I'm talking like 50s, 60s, 80s even. Wrestling made really try to be very secretive. It was almost like a secret club. In a way, very few people were privileged to be a part of it. Um, so they try to, because back then I'm talking like in the extremely earlier days, like 20s, 30s, in the earlier days, the wrestlers that did this for real, in these carnivals and circuses, they realize, why do we have to actually beat each other? Can't we just fake it? The audiences wouldn't know, and we can make some money, and then we can, but we don't actually have to like kill each other every night. We can just stage it, the stage show, kayak theater. So and because it was seen, and pro wrestling really tried to keep it seen as realist, just because it was seen as more profitable at the time. But as time went on by, as the internet basically reveals everything, uh wrestlers realize, who cares that this is a stage show. It's great that it's a stage show. I actually really appreciate it that what we do is a sejenis persembahan. Actually, it's awesome. It's awesome. We're putting on a show. Let's embrace it. Obviously there's still some stuff that we don't reveal. I will always maintain that. But for the most part, I make no bones that what we do is a show, and it's one of the greatest shows on earth.
Okay, that's really nice. One of the last questions,
Hmm.
and about can you can you give us message or motivation and that would you like to convey to your fans or the WrestleSlam followers and or those aspiring to follow in your footsteps in the world of wrestling?
Well, if you wish to become a professional wrestler, there's literally only one way to do it, and that is to join a pro wrestling school. I know there's been some folks that have tried to do this, like some backyard wrestling, and they put on some videos where they do wrestling and stuff in less than ideal situations. I'm gonna let you know right now that if you do that, there is actually less chance of you actually getting into pro wrestling schools, because there's some pro wrestling schools, pro wrestling academies that you actually learn how to wrestle and actually learn the fundamentals of pro wrestling. You don't know these fundamentals down, that means you don't understand the culture, you don't understand the business, you don't understand how to be a professional in that. A lot of people think of professional wrestling as the wrestling part. The professional is arguably more important, actually. I won't reveal exactly why right now, but trust me, it is. I know things are a little bit difficult in Indonesia right now, because there is no pro wrestling school yet. I've kept a close eye on Kebanting very, very closely. And again, I genuinely don't know anything. I do hope. I do hope maybe something will be started off from Kebanting. Maybe they can start off some sort of school, because I know I see the comments, and I can see that a lot of people have a strong desire to at least try this out. And if you do, let's just say hypothetically that Kebanting does open a pro wrestling school. First thing, so my advice to anyone that wants to do this is to respect the art, respect the craft, because what this is a craft. This is not playtime. It's not a playground. You're not going there to. It's not a babysitting center. You need to respect it. If you don't respect it, you need to get the hell out. Second thing is, this is ultimately an athletic endeavor. A lot of people are shocked at how much cardio we do. Pro wrestling is joining pro wrestling is the ultimate escape from your fantasies and being honest with your reality. You have to be very honest with yourself as to how much you can do and how much you can push yourself. Okay, so, and always listen to your coaches. That is the number one thing. If coach says to do something, do it. Okay, because it is dangerous. Wrestling, I am proof that wrestling, even training in wrestling, can be extremely dangerous. So please listen to the coach's advice. You know? And drink water when you train.
So yeah, I hope Kebanting will bring the pro wrestling back to Indonesia.
Mm.
And yeah, it's actually not a question. We
Mm.
we have a little segment here, a last
Mm.
segment, and it's a rapid fire question.
Go
You
ahead.
you you will you answer it really fast. We
Go ahead.
have a couple of questions about wrestling, and it's for the fun. It's just a quick quiz. I'm going to ask some questions about professional wrestling and others, and answer as many questions as you can in 60 seconds. Let's start this from now. Attitude Era or now?
Now,
Now. Rey Mysterio or Justin Liger?
Rey Mysterio.
Okay. Japan or Lucha Libre?
Japan.
Japan. Favorite band of all time?
Ooh, Queen.
Okay. The best food you ever ate?
You know what? Ayam geprek.
Okay, this is will be a debating one. WWE or AEW?
AEW.
AEW. Pro wrestler or VTuber?
VTuber.
VTuber. Okay, and that's a wrap. Thank you, Cornelius Low, and for you guys stay tuned for the other interview with with me Val. And terima kasih semuanya telah menonton, dan terima kasih juga kepada Cornelius Low yang telah telah bersedia menjadi menjadi episode pertama yang di interview WrestleSlam. Ya, jadi thank you sekali. Dan yeah, I think it's a wrap. I'm going to end this right now.